friends decided that they would not speak to me for quite some time because we had pulled Avi out of Holmes and moved him to Tarkington. Final story. When Tarkington, under Avi's leadership, was recognized as a Blue Ribbon school, I had the pleasure to represent the district along with Avi and several teachers from Tarkington to go out to Washington, D.C. to accept that award. And the first day that we arrived, the teachers went back to the hotel to rest for the other things. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, just this one. Thank you. Yeah. So Avi and I decided we were going to traipse around Congress. So we're in the lower level of Congress, and we're walking through, and we start to hear noise out in the distance. Oh, and we look at each other, well, we've got to find out what in the world this is about. So as we come upon the room in the lower level of Congress, there's a table with a couple of staff members there, and we're saying, what's going on in there? Oh, it's the retirement party for Senator Howard Metzenbaum of Ohio.
Oh, my God.
And we looked at each other and we said, you don't think they'd mind if we slipped in, do you? No, go right ahead. So under Avi's leadership, we walk in and we spent probably an hour or so meeting and talking with Senator Kennedy and Orrin Hatch and Brady and just a number of senators who were at this thing. Would I have ever done it on my own without Avi being the instigator? Probably not, but it just goes to show you how fearless that he was on behalf of things dealing with our district and so forth. So just an amazing individual, amazing individual. Yeah. A couple of other things I'd just like to mention. I'm not sure if you were going to mention this about Alyssa or some of the other. The Illinois Principals Association every year, based on regions and based on level of schools, elementary or high school, name a principal of the year. And this year, we're so proud when Alyssa Schlensky Shapiro from Twain was named as Principal of the Year for the IPA for the North Cook region. So I want to certainly congratulate, on behalf of the board, Alyssa for that fine honor. And then something that we started back in 2019 and 2021 and now this year, ISBE, the Illinois State Board of Education's Those Who Excel Award. We had 2 staff members again this year that have been recognized. Lisa Warner, and I'm sorry, but who is the other? Yeah,
Cecilia Franco.
Cecilia Franco have been recognized, and they'll receive their awards. When is that? Is it spring yet?
It's in the spring.
It's this spring.
Yeah.
So congratulations all around to our 3 staff members that have been rightfully recognized. So with that, we'll, I think, move in finally. I appreciate everybody's indulgence on that. Move into our rest of our agenda. Finance Committee, which we had right before this meeting, presentation from our auditor, Baker Tilly, with positive information about our audit this past year. And once again, we've been recognized by what will be Illinois State Board of Education's recognition level award, which is the highest that a school district can be identified with based on our financial work. And to staff, Michael and your staff and Dr. Conley, certainly under your leadership, we appreciate the clean audit that we received again this year and the fact that we're going to be recognized with the recognition award by the State Board of Education. It goes a long way from a number of years back and what the district has worked itself out of under the cooperation of both the administration and the board and the leadership in our finance area. So we're very appreciative of that. And before we move on to the other committee reports, board reports, I did want to recognize one other person not for anything that he's done, but just for the fact that tomorrow he turns 50. So, Mr. DiBartolo, happy birthday tomorrow. Board members, 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday, Michael.
Thank you very much.
I don't think I've ever seen your face redder than that.
I'm sure you haven't.
It's great to now know there's another February birthday near the board.
There you
Good
go.
thing.
So with that fun, we will then move on to the rest of our updates. Board Policy Committee, Deb?
Thank you. The Policy Committee met earlier this month. It seems like it was months ago. It was just the beginning of the month, but so much has happened. So in our consent agenda is the first reading of the policies that we went over. It was a fairly clean review of everything. So if everyone would please look at them and make sure that they get back to me if they have any questions. I have not heard anything yet.
Yeah, this is just a first reading.
This is just the first reading, yes.
Okay. Any questions for Deb? Seeing none. Next. NSSEO.
NSSEO, okay. Things are going along. The biggest thing that we're working on right now is still interviewing for a superintendent. We have had quite a few people that put in applications. We have had both first and second rounds of interviews. Just the last one was just last night, and we are making very good progress. We should have something, we're hoping to announce either on the March 1st meeting, or we will have a special meeting on March 7th, at which point we'll be able to,
So it's next week then.
yes.
Okay, great. Great. Okay. Thank you, Deb. EdRed and IASB, Bill?
Thank you. First of all, thanks to all who attended the legislative dinner. As always, District 21 was well represented. There are a number of bills in the legislature that we are working on at the moment, from the kosher halal meals bill that I told you about last month, to a new forced consolidation bill, which fortunately appears to be unlikely to get out of committee. In the interest of time, since I know Phil always tends to give me a certain look, I will only highlight two of them. But if anybody wants to discuss any of the others separately, I'd be happy to do that. First off, Representative Crespo will be bringing forward a proposal for $35 million in supplemental grants to help suburban districts cope with the flow of migrant students that we've been seeing. It should be noted that Chicago is excluded currently from the proposal because they've already received additional funding for this purpose. As of last check, the bill hasn't gotten a bill number yet, but that should be moving forward shortly. Whether it actually passes is another thing. Second, Senator Gillespie has filed a new TIF reform bill, Senate Bill 1391. That changes the TIF law in a number of ways, including elimination of a number of the vague rationales to qualify for a TIF, reducing the term of a TIF from 23 years to 20 with only one 2-year extension allowed, and requiring a set aside from the TIF fund to help small businesses in the TIF area. The key changes, however, that mostly impact school districts is a provision that would allow school districts to completely opt out of the TIF. That is, the incremental increase in property taxes that normally would go from the school district to the TIF under the current law would remain with the school district. The effective impact of this would be to force municipalities to either negotiate with school districts prior to creating a TIF or forego siphoning money away from us in the first place. The Municipal League has already come out rather strongly against this, even going so far as to draft form resolutions for municipalities to draft and pass in opposition. EdRed will be asking us to submit witness slips. You should be getting an action update soon, and is also looking for administrators and school board members who may be willing to testify on behalf of the bill. Finally, from EdRed, quickly, there was a safety and security meeting this month. I don't want to go into details of that, but I do have the slides for that I'll forward to all of you. And at IASB, which is our film much shorter. If you haven't signed up yet for the North Cook dinner and are interested in attending, please contact Leticia. The dinner will be held here on March 15th, and Dr. Connolly and the team will be presenting on Schools as the Cornerstone of the Community. There have been a couple of staff changes at IASB. Phil, I think you already mentioned last month that Barbara Hobrock had been named a Director of Governmental Relations. A second individual was named in the past month, Mary Ellen, is it Booch? Booch is also a new director.
Yeah, Mary Ellen is someone that I knew when I was involved on the board of directors down there. So she's been with the association for a while and should be it's a nice step for her to be promoted to that level, that position within government relations.
So that's it.
Okay.
Just an update on Fred Crespo's bill, Representative Crespo's bill. It has been introduced. It's HB 3991.
Great, thank you.
I should add that it is expected that next weekend at the quarterly meeting of the Board of Directors of IASB, they should be making their selection of the next executive director, replacing Tom as of July 1st of this year. So that, move on to ISC, Arlen?
ISB would not be me.
ISC.
Oh, Northwest. I have nothing new on that. I did attend Dave Schuler's retirement party at District 214. It was a lovely event. Tributes from a lot of people for the job he's done over a 17-year period as superintendent of District 214, but nothing new on North Cook. We're in good shape, we're financially sound, and looking at ways to grow our support to school districts throughout the North Cook region.
Isn't this Kevin's last year as well as exec?
No, not this year, no. One
Oh,
more year.
one more year.
One more
Okay.
year.
Very good. Stacy, anything?
Just, we hosted the Wheeling Prospect Heights, or Greater Wheeling Chamber of Commerce Board meeting here in the month of February. So I wanted to make sure to say thank you to both Dr. Conley and to Cass for allowing us to host here. I think we're going to try and host here on a quarterly basis for the chamber. Okay, can everybody else hear me now? Perfect, thank you. I also am a little scratchy, so. Thank you to Cass and to Dr. Conley for allowing us to host the chamber meeting here. I think we're going to try and host it here quarterly, but it was, I'm an associate director, so it was very nice. And I wanted to make sure everybody knew that former District 21 board member Rich Rosen was awarded the George Heber Humanitarian Award at the village board meeting a few weeks ago. He didn't tell anybody. Like, I was at something with him 20 minutes before he went and got that award. I was so disappointed because if anybody deserved an audience full of people to honor him, it's Rich Rosen. He's done so much to keep kids in music classes here in District 21 and just selflessly really worked for family learning. And so I wanted to make sure we all knew that he got to stand up and get that award, and it was amazing. Congratulations to Rich. That is all.
Jessica, anything?
No, nothing.
Nope. Any other comments? Okay, we'll move on to staff communications. Dr. Conley?
Thank you. Good evening. We have a couple of different staff reports, so we'll jump right in, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Childress, who is going to give us the first two.
Good evening. The first update is on our advanced learner programs. Just a real quick review. When we talk about advanced learners in our district, we're talking about our high achieving students, students who are talented, as well as students who are gifted. And we've been working on, our programming for our high achievers. So this year, continuing to refine those programs that have been implemented. And we've begun the discussions on talented and still are doing some research on gifted programming for our district. I wanted to make sure that I recognized again our committee members that are part of this task force. So we have been able to retain all of our committee members with one additional one. Joni Murphy joined us this year, but that really has helped us move quite quickly as a task force because we've had that same membership now for 2 years. And I also would like to acknowledge, right, that we have 2 parents on the committee. And then, of course, our board member, Jessica Riddick, is also on the committee. And I'd be remiss if I didn't do a special thank you to Julie Witt, who is our advanced learner specialist, because she is on the ground and really pushing to make sure that we continue to move this initiative forward. So even though I'm standing here in front of you, know that she does a lot of the work to help keep us on track with this. This year so far, we have met 3 times on October 18th, November 16th, and January 31st. Just kind of a very brief summary of what those meetings entailed. So the very first meeting for this year, we reviewed the work of last year, and as well as the accomplishments that had been made thus far. And so, right, the implementation of our Higher Achiever program offerings, the website has been updated, and then we also have updated and translated our materials for Spanish and Russian, which are our top 2 languages other than English in our district. We also have reviewed what has been going well and what are some areas of improvement for the programming that we've already implemented, and then try to determine what would be the priorities for this year's task force. Last year, when I came and presented, we initially thought we would do high achievers, which we did, and that the next step would be gifted. But in conversations with the task force, as well as just in general, conversations with community members and parents, we felt like we really needed to review what was going to be the next step. And it was a good thing that we did, because it was pretty startling how many people really felt that talented should have been the next phase rather than gifted. And I think that it really is, because a lot of our population, basically the gifted, would also get high achiever programming as well. And so the gifted is something that is maybe a little bit different that students would have exposure to. So that kind of shifted that focus, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But just remember that more details about what the current programming was given in August. So people who need more details about what we're currently doing, you can refer back to that presentation. But I really wanted to highlight what we're looking at moving forward. So our current programming for language arts, right, for 4th and 5th grade students, they receive advanced instruction 2 times a week. What we're looking at doing is increasing that to 5 times a week for those students. And then also wanting to add an additional opportunity for some 3rd grade students. So that is probably for 3rd grade not going to be 5 times a week, but we definitely want to roll down to 3rd grade to start giving some opportunities for our 3rd grade students. And then in terms of math, right, we have our 5th grade students that receive accelerated instruction from a middle school math teacher. Currently, they receive about 45 minutes of instruction because they receive that instruction at the middle school. We're working within the schedule to try and see if we can increase that to 60 minutes so that they can have more time with those instructors. And then at their home schools next year, we're hoping to be able to give some enrichment opportunities for 4th grade students. Of course, all of these options are going to be dependent on staff, staff availability and what the schedules are and what we're able to actually do. And I'll talk more about that towards the end of the presentation. Sure.
Quick question.
Sure.
One of the things we know is that girls don't always pursue math, science areas. There's been kind of a cultural thing about that over the years. My daughter faced that kind of when she came to District 21, and we had a fight for her to get to the advanced math program. Turned out to be a doctor in the end, so she had the skill set. What can we do to encourage more girls to pursue math and obviously tangentially the science side later?
Well, right now, right, it's based on data, so it's not
Yeah.
just a teacher's opinion of that, but it is one of the things that when we're disaggregating the data, we're looking at what's the representation across the buildings, but also with, the student's gender, what they identify with as well. So that's all part of the process.
Okay.
Okay. In terms of middle school, we have had a pretty established program, and as we, continue to look at it, we're just going to roll with what we currently have, because what we have isn't broken. It's working really well for our students. This year, remember, we added the the advanced language arts class to try and boost the number of students that are in the accelerated class, and that has been going very well, and we've seen those students also be very successful. So we will continue to have at the middle school level the advanced language arts and accelerated language arts, as well as the accelerated math and double accelerated math. At our meeting on November 16th, we had some discussion about what is our definition of talented. We looked at what are some of the current things that we're doing for talented students. We know that we have a very strong performing arts program in our district, and so that was an area that the committee felt didn't need additional layers, that we really wanted to focus on some of the things that we don't have offerings around. And then we also spent some time looking at what do other districts offer for talented students. And then from that discussion, it was decided that we wanted to do a survey so that we could gather some data from students, parents, and staff to help be able to narrow the focus on what were some of the things we would want to explore. Because of course, if you talk about talented, you can really open the floodgates on a lot of different opportunities for students. On January 31st, we talked about the results of the survey, kind of some verbiage around the definition of talented. And then we asked the task force to really talk about what would be the recommendations that we would want to kind of focus our attention on as we continue to move forward for planning for next year. And so these are the items that came out of that discussion, wanting to ensure that if we create classes or clubs that are in support of the areas that the students are interested in, that we wanted to make sure that we gave students exposure before automatically narrowing down to say, okay, these are the students that have this particular talent. We wanted to give more widespread exposure for students. Of course, professional development for our staff. And then also important to the task force membership was to make sure that we minimize the amount of time that students miss from their normal instruction if this is not a class that's just embedded in their regular schedule. That was something that was really important as far as a recommendation and consideration. So as I mentioned, just before Christmas break, we had this survey administered. And so we had 549 students in our district take the survey. The vast majority of them were third grade and higher, as far as the percentage of students. And what I want to highlight is basically we gave 20 choices, one of which was an other category, right? So to give some prompting to the students of here are a number of things. What are your top 3 choices, right? If you could choose your areas of interest. And so, for example, right, 3D art, 33.2% of the students indicated that 3D art was an area of interest for them. So, and then of course, right, some students chose just one area, some students chose more than one area, but just as far as these were the top ranking things that students expressed interest in. So 3D art, coding, photography, and robotics. And then when we look at the family survey responses, we see similar patterns, right, which is good. There's some alignment there. And then also when we look at our staff survey, and we wanted to survey our staff because we know that we're probably going to have to leverage existing staff in some form to be able to provide some of these opportunities for our students, whether it happens in the instructional day or outside of the instructional day with some stipend work. It's going to impact existing staff. So we really wanted to see what the alignment was there. And we were very pleasantly just surprised and excited to see that there is some alignment there. So that makes us hopeful that we'll be able to offer more variety of what the students would like to see. Any questions about the surveys? Yes.
Just a quick one. Most of the responses, especially under the student and family responses, would fall under a very broad category of engineering type things. Under the teacher administration staff response, we had the world language offering, which is the real outlier there. I'm just curious, under the student and family, how did world languages, where did they show up?
It was just below, a couple of rankings below.
Okay.
The other thing to keep in mind is that the way that the question was phrased was, what is something additional that you would want? So it could be that some of our families felt like, well, we're good with what is currently offered, right? In district in terms of foreign language or world languages. But it wasn't real far down the scale, but it wasn't at the top 4.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about the survey data? So we compiled kind of what the task force, some of the vocabulary that they wanted to make sure that was addressed in the definition of our talent for our district. And so we have determined that we are defining talent as the exceptional aptitude within a discipline. It's a passionate curiosity to learn more about a particular discipline demonstrated by a self-motivated drive to succeed. That's what we're rolling with our definition of talent. So then, I've kind of already alluded to this, but thinking about our next steps, obviously, we want to expand it as much as we can, but we know that we have to work within certain parameters. And so existing staff availability, student interest, how much we can do within our existing schedule, and also transportation logistics. These are all things that will impact just how much we can expand for next year. So we're going to be as aggressive as we can be, but also fiscally responsible. And so more to come on what it will actually be able to move forward with, but we are, I feel like, in a really good state with the committee on what the recommendations are and where our students' interests lie. I feel like we have a good handle on those pieces. And so I think that puts us in a really good position to continue the planning for next year. Any questions?
I just have a quick one. On some of the topics that you have, as far as interest was concerned for talented, look like some of the areas that we're doing it sort of an intramural way with robotics and engineering with the Project Lead the Way programs and that kind of stuff. Would that be something, those leaders, especially at Wheeling High School, have been with us for a long time. Is there any interest or anything going on as far as working with 214 on some of what they're already doing that we could certainly dovetail off of, especially with robotics and with some of their engineering and that kind of stuff?
Yes, absolutely. So, I'm able to, or have been able to, spend some time with Las, who is my counterpart at 214. And so we've already had some of these discussions, begun some of these discussions. So he definitely is on board with supporting us as much as we can to see where we can do some overlap and even have our high school students, right, come back and maybe support some of the clubs and things like that.
Yeah, that's a dream come true for him and something he's been talking about since he was at Wheeling High School a few years ago. So that, seeing that come full circle with this makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Our area is developing into sort of a hotbed of computer skills. The region has. What are the possibilities of us partnering with private sector folks who have those skills and bringing them in to help with the programs you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm smiling because those were the exact questions that I asked members of my team of what have we done historically with partnerships with local corporations. So that's definitely something that we will explore. I will tell you, in my previous experience before coming to 21, corporations are really quick to want to jump on this kind of stuff with students. And so I've had experience doing that, and it's not a hard sell. I'll tell you that.
No, I wouldn't think so.
For the
That's why
most
I'm
part, it's
asking,
not.
yeah.
So, but yes, thank you. That is
Great.
something that I asked also.
Excellent.
Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you.
Oh, you want- Just getting ready to step away. So the other item is not a slide deck. Actually, it's in your board packet as a memorandum on the, we recently were awarded a high impact tutoring grant from ISB. And so this is a grant that we were given some parameters on, as far as like it has to be in-person tutoring. It can't be like an online tutoring company. But we were awarded just over $138,000 to be utilized from now until throughout the summer. We can use those funds. And so we're looking at a combination of hiring a couple of part-time tutors that we can strategically place in some of our buildings that maybe need some extra support with that, as well as paying our staff some stipended positions, to do some tutoring before, after school. What's really nice about this particular grant is it doesn't have to be certified folks. So we could use some of our paraprofessionals. I've also talked with Janelle about looking at some of our PDS interns, right? So some of our student teachers that are in our district, about having them perhaps do some of the tutoring as well, because we've got some really great ones this year. We've been getting some really good feedback on our PDS interns. So we'll be rolling out more information about that and how people can apply for those positions. There is a small commitment of time to do some training modules, but we are also allowed to pay our staff for that training through the grant. So we're excited about being able to give these additional supports to our students.
At the board meeting of 214, 2 meetings ago, they announced a major new initiative to deal with young people coming into the district behind. And they've identified the numbers by buildings and so forth. So it would seem to be a natural, I know you're talking to Laz, to tie into that program, which they want to pick up the kids as they come in. But if we're working with them before they get there with this program, it could be a win-win for both districts.
Absolutely, yeah. And luckily, right, we have in our system already, because of all of the changes that we've made with our MTSS process, we already know the kids that we have to target for this right, that are existing students. So that will really help expedite the identification and exposure for kids. Any other questions?
You mentioned the possibility of before and after school. Will there be a transportation component to this as well, or are we going to expect the parents to be taking care of that portion?
So I have talked with Michael about the transportation, and we did build it into the grant. So there's monies already built in to be able to have some buses to transport students.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I just had one other. Do you have any idea how many students this amount of money will help us tutor? Have we projected that out?
Well, it depends on how many students we're going to have in the groups. One of the things that ISB would like, and we also would like, is to really hone in on smaller groups of students, because it's intended to be tutoring, right? Not just like an after-school program. And so, an exact number I couldn't give you, but I do know that we would like to keep the groups relatively small so that the tutoring is really that it's more 1-to-1 or like a 3-to-1 type of ratio, a smaller ratio. We're hoping that, right, some of our classroom teachers that know that they have struggling learners will sign up to do it and, be able to receive the stipends to service the students.
Okay, good question. Beatrice, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Good information. Next.
So just as a kind of an add-on to the comment you were making about 214, is that, throughout the past several, 2 to 3 years, we really have been stepping up the amount of articulation, the amount of work that we are doing in concert with 214. And I just want to note that during the School Improvement Day that was last Friday, our 8th grade teachers were at the 214 high schools to articulate, to talk with the, so that there is the conversation about what their programming looks like. Our ascending freshmen, having some discussions there, which I believe is the first time that has happened in quite some time. So.
Well, I can add to that Dr. Schuler said to me when we were at his retirement event that you were leading the way in this district-wide, and so we want to thank you for that. It's very important.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. Our next item, again, it's just a kind of a brief update unless there are questions, but I wanted to make sure that I reminded the board that in the fall, we had, and actually throughout the summer, we had a couple of conversations about the concept of having student representatives to the board appointed, and where we landed was to, as opposed to doing this in the fall, in kind of in a segmented fashion for the current school year, that this would be something that we would kind of do for the spring for the following school year, for 23-24. So I just wanted to remind the board that, we are going to be getting that process of application that's for seventh grade students or ascending eighth graders that may be interested in, serving as a student representative to the board. And that those applications will start to be made available through the middle school offices in March. And that at the May board meeting, that if everything goes to plan, and the board approves, that those students would take office. And they would serve from May to May, when they would then graduate and matriculate over to 214 or wherever their high school journey takes them. I just wanted to kind of, again, put that out there. If there are any questions?
Questions? It's interesting, some of the literature that's been coming out recently, and as recently as the November state conference, more and more districts have been going to student representatives or advisory people to boards of education, both at the elementary and at the high school level. So I'm really glad that we're moving forward with that.
And this will be in addition to the Superintendent Student Advisory Council, which has met twice this year, most recently a couple weeks ago. There'll be at least, I think we have one more meeting that we're set. And to the point that Beatrice was making about surveying kids and kind of looking at interests, that's something, we did some focus groups with our students and really kind of got some additional information from them about what they were hoping for, looking for. 3D art came up an awful lot, so I'm assuming that there were a couple of folks on that panel that probably voted for that in their survey. But and it's great. They've been wonderful interactions, very, very insightful. As those of you that were involved with the strategic planning process, we had 6 students on that process, and they are not afraid to tell them, like they see it. And so I really have enjoyed meeting with those kids, and I think this will be a good step forward. So it's February, which means that is that time when we start to take a look at staffing for the upcoming school year. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob Gurney, who's going to take us through kind of a high-level overview of what our initial staffing plan looks like, and then I'll make a couple of comments in addition to that. So, Bob.
We had shared a slideshow with each of you. Right now, we're planning on 895 full-time employees next year. We broke that down by certified this year, non-certified custodians and administrators. With this, we're looking at a 6.0 FTE decrease for next year. And again, this is all tentative as we're seeing current enrollment continue to change week to week, if you will. And then on the next couple of slides, you'll see the tentative average class sizes. We've got a couple bubbles here that Mike's going to talk about, and we've already kind of planned on those, and we've got a few more that we're still watching.
I said it would be a broad overview, and we weren't lying about that. There's a lot of moving pieces that goes into an initial staff plan, and so really at this point, it really does just kind of make sense to give that kind of broad overview, because this will be updated. This will change as the need changes. So we'll be coming back in March and so on and so forth, giving those updates. There are a couple of things that I did just want to kind of note. You know, we do have some hotspots in terms of some bubble groups, larger groups than maybe in some other places. Most notably our ascending second grade, so current first grade students over at Longfellow. That's a big group. And so, you know, those are areas that, as you see your more specific sectioning in your memorandum, note that we have made accommodations for that. So for instance, with that Longfellow second grade, whereas currently there are 3 sections of first grade, there will be 4 sections of second grade next year. You know, and there are a couple of other spots across the district where some similar things. We have some hotspots that we're watching, and you know, they're not at the point yet to where we feel like it is the right thing to add an additional section right now, but they are on our radar. So we're going to continue watching that. One of the things that we know is that the federal money that we have received over the past several years has really funded a lot of good supplemental staffing for us, our interventionists and so on and so forth. Those federal dollars have now been spent. And they are cycling out. We knew this was going to happen. But we also know that we wanted to make sure that we were trying to make the best decisions that we could to ensure that the resources that we find to be a value added are things that can continue. One of the reasons that we have really worked hard to have fewer FTEs next year is not because we have to cut back, but because we also know that we are now at a point where we can't keep adding to the staff. We are up, as I will tell anybody who listens, almost 100 staff members from when I joined the district in 2018. I don't apologize for that. There are areas within our staffing that we needed to address. You know, and I'm very proud of the work that this board and you know, the entire district has done to meet those needs. But there is a point at which fiscally we can't just keep adding and adding and adding. So within this plan, we are taking a look at where are those economies of scale, how we can make some modifications, particularly to our kind of district support models, you know, interventionists, instructional coaches, so on and so forth, that gives us the opportunity to maintain and even increase the level of those support services across the district, but do so in such a way where, well, quite frankly, that we're working, you know, smarter, not harder, that we are being more efficient and effective with our resources, and we're not duplicating things in silos, which has happened and is happening. So there are some of those moves that are being made within this plan. We will continue to do that. Michael and I and others, as we are looking at the overall budget framework for next year, we are taking a very, very close eye to you know, what types of discretionary spending we can really hold the line on to create additional resources availability in the event that now I've got a kindergarten group that exploded on us and we didn't realize that the little people were there. That happens, right? But, you know, so we want to have those contingencies available to where come August, if I need to open up another section of, you know, again, kindergarten at Poe, that I have the ability to do that. We will get to a point where we will not be able to add. And if we have critical enrollment issues in various locations, we will need to make decisions about retasking some of our faculty members who are not currently in classroom positions because they are doing these ancillary supports, instructional support, instructional coaching, so on and so forth. Some of them might have to take on a classroom because I can't just keep adding. So, you know, these are things that, you know, it is not in any way, shape, or form a crisis situation or any kind of situation where we're going to all of a sudden have to be, you know, making cuts. It's about making sure that we are getting, you know, keeping us to a point where we don't get into a situation where we have to make cuts, that we're looking at the financial realities, you know, in the out years to make sure that we are able to maintain the fiscal health of the district. You know, 80% of the money we spend is on people. It's on staff, right? The rest of it is, the whole, everything else is 20% thereabouts. And so these are the types of decisions that we need to make sure that we're staying within our means. So, I think that I'm very comfortable with where we are. There are some unknowns. I mean, we have had weeks where we've had 12 new students register in the same day. As we've noted, since January 1st of 2022, we've enrolled almost 500 newcomers to the district from Ukraine, from Russia, from Venezuela, from Mexico, from India, from, you name it. We do see across our schools a modest increase in enrollment. It's not that we're spiking, very quickly, but we're up. That trend may very well continue. So we just need to be able to make accommodations for those things. So if anybody has any general questions, you'll have the opportunity to take action on this plan during your consent agenda in a few moments.
Yeah, Mike, I call this good management. These are the kinds of things that successful businesses do routinely. Historically, that education has not been known for, reviewing a program that's not working and changing it out. We've done that over the years in 21. So I think I just want to encourage you to stay on the path. It's the right thing to do. It's hard decisions to make, but they need to be made because there's not an unlimited fund coming from the taxpayer that we will have access to. And so it's absolutely the right thing. And thank you for doing that.
Anybody else?
I just had a quick question about, I guess, the pace of enrollment when it comes to welcoming immigrants in. Has there been any sort of a pattern, or is it sort of up in the air?
I would say it's a consistent creep. Michael, I don't know if you've with Carmina, if you guys have talked recently. I mean, obviously there are waves coming back from winter break. There tends to be, there's those natural points.
You used to see very natural waves around here, and with the situation in Ukraine and overseas, things in years past have become a little less predictable the way we used to be able to predict them. Maybe 15 or 20 years ago, you could tell by the calendar when our families were coming back in, when they were coming back out, when you had waves of migration, and then things got very unpredictable. So I'm just wondering if there's any sort of a pattern, or if we're just kind of clipping along.
Again, I think the pattern is that there's a creep, right? There's kind of a almost continuous, add-on of folks coming in, at different times. And Michael, jump in if I'm going down the wrong road here.
No, you're exactly right.
Yeah. And again, when you're talking about unpredictability, we are still in that unpredictable.
Neck deep. I'll tell you, the rumor is that we're about to get another fairly significant wave of refugees from the south again, and that's what's buzzing around Chicago right now, is that another wave is coming.
That, and I mean, as political situations in the war change, I anticipate we're gonna see, additional folks, not necessarily just coming out of Ukraine, but coming out of Russia.
Just curious how that was.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think it's something that is going to be, there's a level of uncertainty. And by the way, people I think are still resetting from COVID, and just kind of the migration that has maybe occurred a little bit because of that. So, I think we're planning for it to be somewhat unpredictable for a while, which is again why we want to make sure we've got these contingencies in place to be able to meet the unmet needs.
I think if there's one predictable nature, we have groups of families that leave the district to go back home for a certain period of time and then come back. That is the most predictable of it all. And then also the fact that it is a still Russian and Ukrainian population that is coming the most steady, but everything else is not predictable.
When is our expected update on the demographic study?
So we've taken a look at some of the initial drafts, both on the functional analysis side, the functional capacity side, which is the building-based, and then also on the enrollment trends. So Michael and his team are continuing to work with cooperative strategies to answer outstanding questions, clarify things. Michael, if you want to give a little bit more there.
Dr. Connolly and I informed him in cabinet the other day, and we're still trying to pin him down on the date and time next week to go over some of the data and then have the final timeline laid out for when we'll be getting that. My guess would be it would be, because the March meeting is so close to this meeting, it'll probably be the April board meeting.
Really?
I could push them for March, Phil.
We can give a preview if,
I'd like to get at least something. If it's not the full final draft, if we
Yeah.
can get something next month, that would be great.
Yeah, we could work on that.
yeah. The thing that's important, though, is we want to make sure that we're getting it right.
Absolutely.
So, we don't, yeah, so,
Yep. Okay,
all right,
next,
Michael?
Michael.
Tonight's a really exciting night because we are rolling out the first preview of some exciting things that are going to be happening this summer. Back in the fall, as you know, we committed to doing 2 playgrounds this year. We decided to do Field because on our list that Glenn McElhaney, our Director of Buildings and Grounds or Operations, had put together based upon age and need, Field was really in need of a new playground. And then also based upon the programs housed at Riley, we really needed a program that was accessible, taking into account the model that Timber Ridge has for its new playground, working with them and our consultants based upon the deaf and hard of hearing program from NSSCO, but our home students from the LSP program, they're there as well. So tonight, we're really happy to be able to show the first design and something that has already been ordered. We're expecting delivery late July for both of these playgrounds. So the first few renderings are from the Field playground. Anybody that's aware, if they drive along Dundee Road, knows that on the east side, the southeast side of the property, there is a very small playground that you have to trek through mud and all sorts of things to get to. We will be eliminating that in order to make one playground, which will be better for students overall, as well as the supervision, safety of kids. And as you can see, there are a lot of elements here, all designed with the help of our consultant and our architects, as well as some feedback from administrators, and then also sharing these designs with the PLCs. One of the really cool things about this is now you have zones that they have to configure to make sure that safety is the paramount concern in designing a new playground. But you can see there is no shortage of things to do on this playground. One of the things we'll highlight on this is the fact that they are all totally accessible. They have a rubberized surface, not rubberized chips, not old school wood chips, not ramps to places. They have a full-blown rubberized surface that will go within the entire perimeter of the playground, and also obviously increases not just the accessibility, but the safety based upon the new surfaces that are out there. So these are the 3 renderings. One of the really neat things that they put in here on the far left side of that is what's called an oodle swing. This actually can have, it's not your typical 1 person or 2 person. It can have up to 4 people in the swing and then 2 to 4 people pushing. So it really is an interactive, collaborative, but also very safe device or apparatus to have on the playground. So this is the Field playground. Riley is the other one, and as you can see, while Field had some accessibility items for the different populations that need them, this one really takes it to a new level. If you look at the perimeter up top, there are chimes. There are also some other single play apparatus that are included in the playground. You can also see that we have swings for our ELSP students and other students who may need that type of accessibility and support. There are a few different items that students in walkers or wheelchairs can go right up to, get in, spin with all their counterparts, and have the same experience that all of our students will have on the playground. There are ramps on these devices so that students in wheelchairs and walkers can actually go up those ramps and be on the apparatus rather than the current playground, which really has them standing on the outside. One of the cool things about Riley is it was a very small playground. This actually allows us to expand the footprint, and it will now be not just an accessible playground, but it will have room for their population. It really is a tight squeeze over there now. And in looking at what the designer had in mind, he thought in order to incorporate for the number of students, this was the type of expansion that we needed. So you can see it really, there's some really neat features to this. This is the first two of many to come, and we're excited to be able to go ahead and roll this out because I think this is going to add to the experience that students have at school, both physical fitness, social, emotional. It just provides a new layer of opportunity for us at the schools. And I will say we are going to kick off an event for our, I don't want to get too far ahead of us, but for the foundation, where playgrounds will be a large focus of money we raise, just because obviously the dollars, these are about $450,000 each. Playgrounds are not inexpensive, and while we're in good financial shape, anything that could help not just our students but our community, if we can raise some funds for that, that would be great. So the next, and then also at Riley, I wanted to point out this was something that the team had come up with. It's called a core board or a communication board. I'll let Kim explain it more because I really am not very good with it, but
I'm sure you could explain it just fine. Right, a lot of our students use picture symbols to communicate, and we've been doing a lot of professional learning around this idea this year, and it's not just for students with life skills. They actually have one of these at Poe already because the PTO purchased it last year, and it's just a really nice added value for a student to be able to be out on the playground, to be able to communicate a want or a need to any staff member, because a lot of, right, like any other student during an unstructured time, sometimes that's when you want to be understood the most.
Nice.
So a couple of questions. Have we approached the park districts to see if Arlington or Wheeling would be interested in participating with us?
so in park districts or parks or places that we have common space or land together, that's the plan. I will say that in approaching them when it's landlocked, it's not something that has typically been something that we have had much success with. That being said, we're doing that every summer with gyms and for their floors, for their lighting. So we do practice that. We're hoping as we redevelop intergovernmental agreements that we'll have more success with that.
So, you know, NSSEO, I had them connected with the Arlington Park District, and they did participate in that playground because of the interactive and special needs.
And we'll continue to work to, meet those kind of alliance needs where we can. A lot of parks have, that the park districts operate are in close proximity to our own parks. And so, at times, and when they're kind of making some determinations around their own resources, it's, we've got a park that is right here. Now, that said, Twain, for example, that was a cooperative venture. So the park that is over at Twain, it's a joint venture between Wheeling and our district. So we will do those things where we can. And where it fits the mold. But we also feel like this is something that we want to make sure that we're able to move forward with in our own right.
One of the other things about the funding source is Arlington has been a great partner. They have participated in funding the gym projects and whatnot.
Right.
The issue with this one is we decided this pretty quick and pretty late. And so this isn't a fiscal year that they had already accounted for.
Yeah.
So we have talked to them about next year. They already have talked to us about the Poe gym floor. So, it's about going to the well too many times as well, because it is a partnership and we're trying to be respectful of that. But as budget cycles allow, we will definitely do that.
A gym floor that will no longer be green.
Right.
So, and then at Riley, of course, you do have the park district on the other side of our building, but there's the homeowners association, which has raised funds in the past for community stuff. When we planted trees in Northgate, it was the homeowners that raised the money to plant all the trees that were not existent in the park. So that I could connect you with them. They might be interested in helping as well.
Anybody you connect me with that can help, I am more than happy
Yeah.
to talk to.
Okay.
Michael, before you go on, one other question.
Sure.
You mentioned expanding the footprint of the Riley Playground. I assume we're talking about the playground that's at the southeast side of the building?
Our playground, the other one that's on the.
Southwest, yes. thank you.
Right.
District is.
That's our playground, yes. The other one is not ours. That is the
So,
park
but-
district.
But you're talking about expanding that footprint. Is that moving the playground in any way closer to the homeowners on that side of the property?
Yes, it's moving it back. There's a retention pond back there that we will properly fence for safety. We're actually gonna have a fence around. We're discussing how big, how restrictive that is. But yes, it will move it slightly closer, but you are still separated by that retention pond that's behind
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Thank you. The next thing, and this is really kind of the culminating effort of the referendum, as we have finished a lot of the security, the HVAC. We've done for the libraries, it'll be 8 after this year with only 4 to go. We are finally to the phase of 21st century furniture. We would have been there sooner, except this little event called COVID happened and stopped the committee process. I do want to give a lot of credit to the initial work done by the committee in 2018-19 in advance of and after the referendum. They made this project a lot easier than it would have been had we have been starting from scratch. That committee, I know Kevin Olson had turned over a number of files to me from that committee as he was on it. Mary had a bunch of files in her office. And then there was just a plethora of information that we were able to start from, because since we are a quarter of the way almost through the 21st century, it hasn't changed that drastically. But that being said, there have been some updates to furniture in the last 3 years or so. And in that time, we have developed a district color palette. We've gone to a flooring design that is throughout the district in each of the buildings the same, doing new lighting. So this truly became an effort that we were putting the finishing touches on after COVID. We knew that people could not think about 21st century furniture like this during a time that we went back to 1980 style learning with little individual desks all in rows that were separated. So now that we're here, these are the first renderings. The plan this year, and we have some rooms that will be the demonstration rooms throughout the district. Those will be here in the late spring. But these are the renderings of first, second, and then there's third, fourth, fifth, and then the 6th, 7th, 8th language arts rooms. This year, it's first and second grade in all 9 elementaries. It will be a Herculean task over the summer to get it in, but it'll get done. And then 6th, 7th, and 8th grade language arts rooms. We're hoping for the bookcases for the classroom libraries and some other materials at the 6th, 7th, 8th grade level to actually be in during this school year, as we want to get those displayed in a much more user-friendly format. But what you see is a combination of individual desks that can be put together or taken apart, depending on the activity. You have tables. As you can see, there's guided reading areas and reading nooks, bookshelves, so that we have all of those items that Beatrice's team has been working to put into classrooms so that we have a consistent set of learning materials. And then there is also in the first, second grade, flexible seating for the floor. We'll have wobble stools or hokey stools as they call them, so that's an option for students. We also have other types of chairs, as you can see, they're a little wider. We went as a team out to Elmhurst to see them previewed because they've done this initiative over the last couple of years. And it's really interesting to see kids enjoying learning because they can sit in a comfortable manner, whether it's on the back of the chair, legs spread around it. You just see kids that, like I was in school, who would fidget. They now have an opportunity to sit in a way that's comfortable and gather their focus and make their attention a little more direct to the lesson. So this is the first, second grade. This is one option that we have based upon the square footage in the room that has a double-sided bookcase for guided reading kits and other materials up in the top corner. This is our basic plan that if we didn't have the room for the double-sided bookcase, where we would put bookcases against the wall. Same footprint as the original first, second grade room. And then this is the 3rd to 5th grade setup. As you see, slightly different, not terribly different, but provides a little more freedom and flexibility for our intermediate learners as opposed to the primary. And then last but not least is the middle school language arts rooms, which is definitely a change from what's in there now. The plan, Kim is working with our designer on the self-contained classrooms. We would like to have those 4 programs outfitted with furniture this summer as well. Far less classrooms than this, so we're confident we can get that done. And then resource rooms as well are things that are rooms that we're looking to go ahead and either pilot or get moving in full load for this summer. So we think this will be a 2 to 3 year plan. Next year, grade 3, 4, 5, some other middle school classrooms in different subject areas. And if we can't get to it next year, the 3rd year would be exploratories and common areas. So we'll go ahead and start publicizing this, but this will be here this summer.
Any questions for Michael?
It's just very exciting, the combination of the new equipment and the lighting in our buildings really make them look like new buildings. So I think it's fantastic. I had only one question. In other districts where they've done some revisions, the one complaint I've heard from teachers is not enough storage space. Is
There's
that-
I'll let Mike
never
and
enough
Beatrice
storage
handle
space.
that.
I'm going to say there, and you know, this might be an unpopular thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's never enough storage space.
Well-
And I will tell you, we are pack rats. We, meaning educators, we very rarely get rid of things. And so, you know, we need usable, workable, versatile learning space for kids. We have a lot more technology, you know, yes, we have books, things of that nature. So there is never enough storage. We have designed these for adequate storage.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, people will disagree with that.
My wife's a retired teacher. I know a bit about this.
And people will disagree with everything I just said, and that's okay. But we you know, we need to make sure that we are not giving up valuable square footage that can be used for active education because we've got more and more and more shelves. So, yeah,
21st century storage.
not the most popular thing for me to have said, but it's the truth. So.
Well, Michael, if you need more storage, more book space, I understand there's plenty of unused bookshelves in Florida right now.
Use the mic, would you, Bill, please?
No, don't, no.
That's okay.
It's just,
He heard what I said.
yes.
Was there anything else, Michael? I would just like to clarify for all of our lovable pack rats that work in the district that we believe you are lovable and influential and necessary pack rats, but do understand that there is limited space that we have to apportion out. Just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of how lovable that we believe you are.
And I include myself in that lovable pack rat. Well, I don't know about lovable, but pack rat. So, I mean, I get it, you know.
Okay. Anything else under staff communications, Michael?
I think we're not going to venture there again.
The next item on our agenda is public comment. Any members of our public that wish to address the board, they have 3 minutes. If you would fill out a form that's available on the table and drop it off to Ms. Del Real, then that would take place. So Letitia, is there anybody that is signed up?
No, we do not have anybody signed up today.
Thank you. Mike, anybody virtually?
No, we don't.
Okay. With that, we will move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody need anything pulled from the consent agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Jessica?
Bill?
Aye.
I vote yes. Stacy Allen?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Phil?
Aye.
Harlan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, before we adjourn for closed session, I'd be remiss if I didn't comment. On February 11th, just a couple weeks ago, we had our second annual legislative community breakfast a community legislative breakfast with over 20 leaders from the state level and local level. And I just want to commend the presentation that our staff, our administration put together, from Dr. Conley to Bob, Beatrice, Michael, Kim. You guys did a wonderful job. People were shaking their heads in wonderment about what's going on in the district. And Cass, thank you for putting it all together, the logistics and so forth. It was just a wonderful event, and we look forward to continuing that in the years ahead. So with that,
Bill, really quick, on the consent agenda, I just wanted to recognize somebody that's in the audience tonight. So a few months ago, when we did the recognizing distinction, Jose Alvarado, the custodian over at the Gill Admin Building, was recognized. Tonight on the consent agenda for personnel was the hiring of the first head custodian the district has had at any of its admin buildings. We knew that there needed to be a head custodian because this building is bigger than the old building. It has much more to do, and Jose is the absolute perfect individual for this, because there is not an individual in this building who doesn't compliment him on a daily basis, and he makes this beautiful place an even warmer place to be with just his attitude and his performance. So I just wanted to congratulate Jose being the first head custodian of the new admin building.
Jose, for those that don't know you, just thank you. Okay. Be it resolved, I have to read this, right? No, you can just call for a motion to go. Oh, great. Can I have a motion to go into closed session, please?
So moved.
Second,
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you so much. Have to
Okay,
read
I'll vote yes. Stacy Allen?
yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Phil?
it. Aye.
Arlen?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Motion carries.
The board will now be going into closed session. There is the possibility there may be action taken at the conclusion of that. For those that want to stay around for that, we're not sure how long we're going to be, but you're welcome. The seats are comfy, so thank you all very much for coming.